Hi, Helen.
Okay.
Hi, nice to see you. So this is Helen. She was a client of mine back end of last year in starting out her journey on Airbnb, and she's chatting with me today about tax and specifically about capital allowances, which is a hot topic at the moment. So let's just start with who should be listening. Well, Helen and I have spoken, and basically almost everyone who has a furnished holiday let. And I was actually reading, Helen, since we last spoke, it's about 80% of people who might be able to claim haven't yet claimed. So,
Yes, that doesn't surprise me at all. I think it's an area that lots of people just don't know about. Regular accountants don't always know about this, or if they do know about it, they haven't got the skills to do it.
yeah. And what we're talking about is how you can save tax. And it could amount to thousands of pounds for some people who are listening. Um,
Absolutely.
so it matters because A, you could get quite a bit of money back in terms of a tax not rebate, a tax
Refund? Yeah. You can.
refund.
Some
Yeah.
people will be eligible for
A
refund.
refund,
Yes.
yeah, and you can set it against future profit too.
Yes.
And the reason that it's pertinent now is because there have been some big changes to the law that people will be aware of, to the furnished holiday let law. But what people I think aren't so aware of is the impact that has on this specific tax, this capital allowances tax. So that's what we're kind of going to talk about
Yes.
today. Brilliant. Right. So Helen and I met, as I say, in 2024. And tell us a bit about your journey with me and where things are at now with Hansel Cottage.
So Kay was absolutely brilliant when we decided to leave our agents and go it alone. We had a number of direct bookings, but we hadn't really we tried Airbnb before actually before we'd gone with the agents, and we didn't have a single booking. So although we were getting direct bookings on our own, we thought, well, it would be nice to get some more through Airbnb. And Kay was fantastic at helping us get it all set up. And we got bookings very, very quickly. We've actually got a whole stream now of bookings, I think several in a row. And since we spoke yesterday, we had another booking last night. So it's been really good.
Ah, that's fab. Thank you. Thanks for saying. I remember you've just mentioned about that the first time you went, you didn't get any bookings. And I remember saying to you, "Oh, that's not right. We can
Well, there are
sort
lots
that."
of them, as you said, lots of them are two-night bookings. The one we got last night is a two-night booking. So
Yeah.
that's
No,
obviously Airbnb people like two-night bookings.
they do. They
Yeah.
do. That's a story for another day. Love that. Okay, so I want to just preempt our chat and what we're about to say by saying that it's really important that me and everyone listening recognizes Helen is absolutely an expert, but what she's about to talk to us about is generalized information. She can't offer personal advice, obviously, on a call like this with me, but hopefully there'll be some information here that allows you to take something away and then get in touch with a professional for personalized advice. But this doesn't constitute that. Right. So let's talk basics. What are capital allowances and how are they changing and why don't people know about this widely?
Okay, so capital allowances. When you spend money on your business, on your property, on your furnished holiday let business, you're spending money buying your property. You might be spending money extending your property or buying new things for your property that will last a long time. Those things are all capital things. You'll also be spending money on your running costs, so your electricity bill, your cleaning, your laundry, gardening, things like that. Those are your revenue costs, your running costs. So
Okay.
all your running costs you can deduct from your profits anyway, as part of the when you're doing your accounts, and so you don't pay tax on you deduct those from your profits before you pay tax. But your capital costs, you're not you can't deduct any of them apart from the fact that there are these things called capital allowances, and their actual full name is plant and machinery capital allowances.
Okay.
So the elements of capital expenditure that have plant and machinery in them, you can deduct from your profits.
Okay. But the reason that this is pertinent now is because that is changing.
That is changing from this
Okay.
April. They will no longer be available. So the last tax return that you can make these claims in is the current year is the 24-25 tax return.
Okay. And that's why this matters now, because if you miss that opportunity to claim any allowances now, that opportunity is gone.
Yes.
So effectively got until the end of January next year then to do something about it.
You have, although you have then got another year to amend that tax return, so you have got a little bit
Okay.
longer. But I think we talked about this before. No capital allowance specialist is going to be able to just produce a claim like that.
Yeah.
So it's the time to act, and we're all going to be very, very busy because so many people want these
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
So the time to act is now.
Yeah, understood. Well, if it's 80% of people are yet to investigate, you're going to be ever so busy, aren't you, with people getting on and doing it. Okay, so we've spoken about that there's a lot of people that this could apply to. So let's imagine I run a furnished holiday let. What other questions do I need to ask myself to establish whether or not it's worth giving someone a call?
It's generally if you bought it in the last few years, if you've bought it and it was used as a residential home before, that's probably more likely that you're going to be able to claim. We have to look at the tax history. So if it was used previously as a furnished holiday let, it's going to be quite unlikely, not impossible if it was quite recent, but it's going to be quite unlikely that you're going to be able to make a claim.
Is that
Um,
simply because the plant and machinery has already been installed before you've spent on it?
um, sorry, don't interrupt.
Why does it matter if it was already a furnished holiday let?
Oh, before.
Yeah.
Because that person would have been able to make a claim,
Oh, of course.
and there's some technical rules that I won't go into now about bringing. Yeah, there's some tax technical
That makes
stuff
sense.
that
That those
previous owners
allowances may already have been claimed.
they
That
may have
makes
already been claimed. Yes,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
yes.
okay. But so we do need to be qualifying as a furnished holiday let. Remind us what those are under HMRC's definition. What do we need to?
So you have to be let for 105 nights and available for 210, and lettings that are over 31 days don't count towards
Okay.
that.
So similar to the ones that would decide if your business rates or council tax, but I think the requirement's a bit higher for that, isn't
Yes,
it?
that's just 70 nights. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
In
So
England, I think Wales is different. I should add that.
okay. And so, okay, with business rates, you have to evidence that you've achieved those number of nights, that
Mhm.
occupancy, before you can make a claim to switch to business rates. Is that the same with this? At what point can you make a claim and say, I'm a furnished holiday let now?
If you meet the requirements, there's no one's asking you to produce the evidence, but obviously you
Okay.
do need to keep records of all your occupancy data,
Hmm.
and so you must meet the requirements. If there was if there was an investigation or something, you have to be able to prove that you've met those
Yeah.
requirements. But you don't need to apply to anywhere. You just do it on your tax return.
And so someone got in touch with me off the back of the post I did a couple of days ago, who is actually starting out. He's got his first guest next week. So can he look to do this even though his first guests are only next week? Can that
Yes,
still work for him?
because although the rules are changing in April, because he started, and when you start the first year look at the first 12 months of operation. So
Okay.
he can look 12 months forward from when he started because he started in this tax year.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, um, why should people look to do this? What's involved in making a claim for these allowances, and why would it benefit my following?
So, so when people have spent money on their property, they have bought they bought the walls, the roof, they bought the land that the property sits on, and within that, they've bought the plant and machinery, and it's those items that we'll be claiming tax relief on. So, what's involved in it is a specialist like myself will go and look at that property. Will value all those different elements, the land, the structure, and the plant and machinery within it, and put together a capital allowance claim, and the numbers on that claim go into the tax return to get the tax relief. So what it does is it reduces your profits, so you're paying less tax. So that's why
Yeah.
everyone should be doing it because they're saving tax.
Yeah, okay. And you can also offset that tax off future profits. So if you're not
Yes,
yet profitable and
absolutely.
you make profit within your furnished holiday let business, it can't be
Yes.
a different income, then you can offset that against future profits. That's another question we've had in the last few
Yes,
days.
so at the moment it can only be used against furnished holiday let income, but after April it's all going to be put into one big business. So you'll be creating a loss, and that loss can be carried forward against against all your property income.
So, so even if you think there may be no benefit, it's really worth giving someone a call and just checking that because it could
Absolutely,
be, yeah.
absolutely, and it's yes, and any good capitalized specialist will be interested in are you making profits? Are you expecting to make profits? Have you got any
Mm.
other rental income that these losses can be used against?
Mm, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Another question I had, Helen, was about pooled allowances, and I didn't even understand the question, so I passed it on to you.
This is quite technical. I'll try and give you the short answer. If you've if you're claiming you have an initial allowance, so if you've spent the money in the tax year, so if you've spent money, if you're doing your 24-25 tax return, if you'd actually bought your property in that year, you can identify the allowances and claim the whole lot. If you're not claiming in that year, you haven't got the initial allowance, and the expenditure goes into what are called pools, and you can only claim a percentage each year.
Okay,
You get that you still get the same tax relief, but it can take longer to get it.
okay, okay. I would want, if this were me needing that question, I would want you to tell me that again. But this is exactly why it's important to speak to someone
It's
one to
yeah,
one, isn't it?
and
And a really good,
I don't think it's worth saying it again
no.
because people
And I
need to
think,
come and
and I,
talk to me.
yeah, and I think with lots of these things, having your own example to illustrate it
Mm,
suddenly makes everything more
mm,
clear, doesn't it? If you're
yes,
able to actually talk to somebody about their
yes.
own place. So, Helen, you're a bit special and you underplay this, but you are a holiday let owner, and your career has meant you are perfectly placed to support people with their capital allowance claims. Tell us about your background and what makes you a bit special.
So I was working as a chartered surveyor, and I got recruited to work in the capital allowance team of one of the big four accountancy firms. Um, and so working there, I sort of learned about capital allowances and did my tax qualifications. So I'm also a chartered tax advisor. Um, and then when I had my children, I decided I was working in London and not living in London. So there's lots of commuting, and I decided it to have sort of slight change of direction and not have to commute to London to do capital allowance work, where at that
Yeah.
time all the big practices were. So I set up my own tax practice, which I've done for the last I don't know how many years. My son is nearly 20, so quite a long time. And I've been really working with private individuals a lot, small businesses, but private individuals, lots of property owners. And just more and more recently, I realised I could bring the two things together because holiday let owners needed capital allowance claims. And I
Mm,
think that gives me a really good advantage because I'm doing the tax returns, so I know how it works. I know in practice how the numbers are going to go on the tax return.
mm.
Whereas I think other people just aren't doing it all.
Yeah. Well, and that brings us on to another question, which is, most owners will have an accountant, and some people will say, well, my accountant deals with
Mm,
all of that. And what's the difference between the allowances that a standard accountant might be claiming for and know about, and
yes.
those that someone with a specialism that you've got is able to do?
So your average, your normal accountant will certainly be able to will pick up if once your business is up and running, if you're spending money on new furniture or
Mm.
so that's not repair, that's not sort of repairs to your furniture or replacement furniture, but the furniture in the first place. Or if you're, say, installing a hot tub, I would expect them to pick up on that sort of expenditure. But what they will not do and won't have the skills to do is that initial purchase of the property, or if there's a big extension that's got lots of plant and machinery within it, they won't have the skills to go and value all the different elements and put them together and work
Yeah.
out what the plant and machinery claim is.
Yeah, I just want to relay that back, Helen, because that was for me when we first spoke,
Mhm.
the bit that I just hadn't got my head around.
Yes.
and is the bit that means could potentially be big money, which is that
Yes.
because you're a surveyor, you can look at the actual value of the purchase
The
price
purchase
and
price.
a
Yes.
portion of that, and you've said to me before something like 10 to 30% potentially, a portion of that
It really
might
varies. Yeah.
yeah, might be able to have tax relief against it,
Yes.
which obviously because of the cost of property could be big money. So
It
that's
could be sort of over, it could be depending on how much you've spent on your property, it could be over £100,000 or more, it
yeah,
can be a
yeah.
lot of money.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's a lot to then claim the tax relief on. I think
Yes.
that's the bit that that was one of my light bulb moments when we spoke before,
Yes.
like, this is
Yes.
why it's so big.
Yes.
Okay, so let's summarize. Um, First of all, what are as well as purchase price, what are the types of things that come under capital allowances, and as opposed to what doesn't?
So the things that what you can claim on are things like the heating systems, the electrics, the kitchen, the bathrooms, the hot tub if you've got one, furniture, but that's usually picked up by an accountant anyway. Fitted cupboards. There's all sorts of. It's the things that aren't the walls and the roof,
Yeah,
essentially.
okay. The things that
But
guests
that's
are
very
using.
simplistic. So you do need an expert to then
Yeah, to
look at
figure
it.
that out. Um, and what are the deadlines? Because we talked about that chap that's opening up soon. So there's a deadline very soon if you're wanting to get up and running before
Yes,
the end of this tax year, right?
yes, yes.
So there's that deadline, and then there's the actual tax year, and then there's when you can claim. Talk me through those
Yes,
again.
so you get up and running before the end of this tax year. Um, Ideally, put the claim in your tax return that needs to be submitted by next January. But if you miss that, that tax return will still have to be submitted by next January, but you can amend that tax return. You've got a year to amend that tax return.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
those are the key. But it's really as soon as possible because it's not a instant process. There's a lot of information that needs to be gathered.
Yeah.
So
I'll contextualize this, and Helen's too polite to say, by saying yesterday I text Helen and said, Helen, how many can you do a month? I'm getting a lot of interest because I think it's people are going to realise that there's some money to be had, aren't they?
mm,
And so the last summary, I've had emails from people advertising that this is a service they offer big companies.
mm.
What are the differences? What's the benefit of going with somebody small? Again, you're not great at selling yourself, Helen. There are enormous benefits. What are the benefits of going with someone small as opposed to a big company? And what should people be looking out for when if they shop around, get in touch with a couple of companies, what should they be looking for to find someone that's going to work well for them?
So I think you want to find someone who's really curious about your situation. Are you making profits? Interested in your property, and also how you own it. Is it do you own it with a partner? How does that work? What tax bands you're in? Because if they don't know all that, they don't. It's not going to show. They're not going to be able to tell you what the real benefits are.
Okay.
So that's really important. Um, there are some people out there who like to work on percentage fees. I always work on a fixed fee because I just think it's more straightforward. And I slightly worry that percentage fees um, incentivize the surveyor to perhaps up the claim unrealistically
Sure.
when it shouldn't. But there are different ways of working in these fee bases. I would be very suspicious of anyone who wants any tax refund to go through their bank account
Okay.
and wants to be your tax agent and get the refunds to them. I think that's totally unnecessary. You should get the refund yourself and pay your capital allowance person separately.
Yeah.
Um, I think just find someone who's really curious and interested in your
Yeah, sure.
situation.
And is there any sort of regulatory body that people should look out for?
The You don't actually legally need to have any qualifications, but they should be supervised for anti-money laundering by either one of the professional institutions or HMRC. So that's
Okay.
something you could look at.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I am more than happy for anyone who's watching this, anyone who follows me, to ask me any questions that I can answer as a complete layman and what I've understood from you, because I think your time is going to be quite precious going forward. But how do people get in touch with you, Helen, if they think, actually, I think there's something in this and I'd like to just have a chat?
My website is www.mapletreeservices.com. So
Yeah.
that's probably the best place to, you can go on there, have a look at that. There's a contact form on there. That's the easiest way. And then you can book a meeting with me
Okay.
once you've filled in that contact form.
And I'll obviously put the details somewhere around this video that we're going to
Yes, I've also
post.
got a Facebook page and I've got some resources for FHL owners on there.
Okay. Oh,
So
that's really useful to know. Thank you. I'll tag the Facebook page in this as well then. Brilliant. Helen, is there anything else that I've forgotten to ask you or that we ought to talk about?
I'm trying to think it through. I think just that it's an opportunity now that's it's not going to be there forever. So,
Yeah.
but you don't need to make an instant decision as well. You can have a chat with
Okay.
me. You can have a think about it. I've been very busy since you've started trying to sell my services for me. So yes, it's not something you need to decide on immediately. I give examples of how it might benefit you and what the value might be before you make
Yeah,
that
sure.
decision. So get in touch as soon as possible, but then you know, have a bit of time to think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But
To
don't
mull it
leave
over.
it till
Yeah.
January because it just
Yeah.
won't be possible to do
No,
it
it's
that
not.
late. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Helen. This has been so useful. And again, this is the third time I've chatted this through with you, and I've learned more this time as well. So thank you so much.
Oh,
That's
it's been
brilliant.
lovely to talk with you, Kay.
All right. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.